You have to excuse me a minute. I'm getting a little bit of a cold, I think, so if I shook your hand, I apologize. I've been fist bumping as many as I could, so, Mayor. That's my first victim. No, really, thanks, Mayor. I really do appreciate it. And Representative Brown, thanks for coming. And the City Council, and of course, obviously, the entire community is the reason that we're here today. The officers in the back of the room, that their support for the community, as you'll see here shortly, is humbling, to be quite honest. I also would like to mention that the support we get from the back row there, I guess you guys told me that's City Council row back there. So the support we get from that council is so important to this successes that we're having. So publicly, I'd like to say thanks for the support you've been giving us over the last year. There's always an agenda, right? So let me cover that real fast so you can know how long am I going to be here, what's he going to talk about. Now, what we want to do is we want to get out just a few things that we promised to do in the last meeting. But really, we're here, those of us in uniform, we're here really because we want to hear from you more than we want to tell you stuff, although we want to let you know what's going on because I know you're interested. But we really want to hear from you. So I'm hoping that you came with some questions and hopefully we have some good answers for you. If not, we'll get them later. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to go here and I want to absolutely thank Pastor Toby for a couple reasons. One, for what the mayor said for allowing us to use this facility, but most importantly to the church for loaning him to us as often as we can take him for our chaplain. There's nothing more important than him being our chaplain to us, because not only is it just for negative times, there are times when we really need a chaplain, both the officers and importantly the community. When bad things happen, he's the expert. He's got the direct connection, right, to help some people out, right? So we appreciate that. But he also participates just by stopping in and riding along with the officers, goes to meetings with us. We'll be holding him hostage next week at our strategic meeting for a little while. So he's getting inundated. Him and Pastor Darrell will be getting inundated with what goes on in Whitehall's admin stuff. I don't know if he's interested or not, but thank you, sir. We appreciate it. I would be remiss, too, if I didn't thank the people who put all this together for me. Caitlin, where you at? Who's texting over there? Now she got caught off guard. And then, where's Miranda at? Right back here, Miranda. Those two put a lot of work into this last few weeks, putting it together, so thanks to both of you. I really appreciate it. So I'm not going to go rapid fire, but I might talk a little quick. So raise your hand if I'm talking too fast, because I want to get through what we need to get through, and then we want to sit down over here and answer some questions for you, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is give you an update, as promised, where we are with the strategic plan that we covered last in June. Give you an update on some agency programs. Okay, then we're going to have a wonderful K-9 presentation here in a minute, and then open it up for some town hall discussion, okay? I've been saying since I've been here, and I think this is an important connection, and I mentioned the council a minute ago for this reason too, and the mayor, because I think, and he's not here now, I would think Zach if he was here, Woodruff, I really do believe that when we start talking about issues within any community, typically it's a socioeconomic kind of issue, right? Well, social issues tend to fall in the lap of law enforcement, and the economic stuff we're not really that good at, right? So that's where they come in. And what we look for is a partnership. And we've been talking about that. The mayor's been talking about that for a year now, about the importance of law enforcement and economic development working hand in hand. Those two pieces come together. Without both of them working, it's not really that successful. And so we've done a lot of good things. I'm going to flip through them real quick. Some of them all of them you're familiar with. I'm not an expert on it. Obviously, Zach Woodruff from the Service Department and the Mayor, they would know a whole lot more about it if you want to ask them questions about it later. But there are some very important things that you know that's happening, you've seen going on up here at Broad and Main, or Broad and Hamilton, right? Great things happening there. I'm going to show you a couple things of what the results of that was here in a second. We've also got the parks, right? Parks are doing some great stuff at the Y for the youth. That's a major part of this whole Safer Whitehall thing, having youth having things to do and us being involved as adults with the youth. I think that was important. So if you didn't get a chance to find out what's going on here, either talk to Caitlin or our Parks and Rec. And of course, up here on Broad, there's going to be some services, and we're always thinking about what are additional things can we do with services, and I think this is important too. So I'm not the expert on this, but I just want to throw 3 real quick things out there to what the city is doing to help us with the law enforcement side of things. It's that kind of economic development that is helping us with this crime issue, right, that you are usually coming here to ask us about, all right? So, remember we talked about our mission and our vision, so I'm not going to repeat that. I think it's somebody put it on YouTube or something if you're interested in seeing it again, so I don't want to repeat the last one. If you were here, great. If you weren't, it's on there, I think, so you can see the whole strategic plan. You can go to our website and you can download it if you want to read it, and we keep updates on what we're doing. But I will hit, just in case you weren't here, a couple things that got us where we are today, right? So we started off talking about where we were 2014 to 2016 last time we met, and we knew the violent crime was up, right, significantly. The property crimes, perception of the community just wasn't all that great where we wanted it to be, at least externally. Theft was one of our biggest problems, and I don't think I surprise you when I say narcotics has a big part in that. So that was one of the major things we talked about when we put the strategic plan together. It took us a few days to do that, and then about 4 or 5 months to really implement it. And I said something then that I wanted to emphasize today. I want to remind everybody that when you look at statistics are funny little things, right? So sometimes they look good, sometimes they look bad, and sometimes the ones that look bad really are good, and you don't know that, right? And that's what we're here to tell you. I've said it the last time, and I'll say it again, crime rate, I can take it to 0, and which would make everybody happy for about a split second till I tell you how I would do that, and that would mean we would arrest nobody. That's not a good thing, right? But the statistics would show 0 arrests and 0 crime, okay? Obviously we can't do that. That's not the way that works. And so when we start working harder in certain areas, then the statistics start to climb. And when the statistics and the arrests start to go up, that makes what you would hear in the news, the crime rate, going up, okay? So part of our strategic plan, we discussed it last time, is for you to hang in there with us for a little bit. Hang in there with us on things like theft offenses, and hang in there with us on narcotic offenses, because they're going up doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. It's because we're making them going up because we have some strategies in place. But what the goal is and what our strategy is at some point we're going to peak, because the word's going to start spreading enough that we're going to start staying away, and we're going to start struggling trying to find some of those arrests, and that's a good thing. We're okay with that. We'll find some other things to do, pass football with some kids, right? That's okay too. So that's where we ultimately want to get to. But I mentioned there's a couple things that I want you to hold us to, right? Mayor mentioned a couple of them: violent crime, robberies, and burglaries. Look at those things. Watch what's happening there. If we're going up on that, then we're doing something wrong. That's what we're saying. And we're holding ourselves accountable to it, and we want you to hold us accountable to it. Fortunately, I can say that with some good numbers up there, right? Our summer months was some concerns for us, right? Going into the summer, we were at 41% down in violent crime. That's one of the key indicators of the major things that we focus on. It was going down. It was a 41% down at that point. But we knew the summer months were coming, right? And we were really, really concerned. And this is the months we're the most proud of coming out of this, the efforts that these officers that are standing at the back of the room back here, some of them, did during those summer months. And if you had any idea the number of hours they put in pulling that off, it isn't 40 hours a week. I promise you that. And the amount of hours they're doing and putting into this to make this happen is amazing. So, violent crime down 36%, robberies down 23%, and burglaries down 16% for the summer months. That's the summer months, all right? Those numbers are tremendous if you break it out to a year, but I just want you to see the summer months. We're going into the cold weather again, and it's just going to get better. It's going to get better because of the work those folks back there are doing and the support we're getting from you folks. So those are the 3 things I wanted you to hold us accountable to. Now, this was the one I said, oops, lost it there. The narcotics and the theft. The intention was for that to go up. Remember the peak? So it's not a bad thing they're going up. Those theft arrests, they're going up 24% because we are making them go up 24%. We are working with Town and Country. We're working with Walmart and all the other Targets and the other stores out here. We're doing theft blitzes. And again, beyond their normal shift duties, they're working additional time, working in the facilities, sometimes in plain clothes, sometimes in uniform. but they're out there and they are arresting people who are stealing, or at least getting them some intervention in certain situations, right? Trying to prevent this from happening again. And we're working with Walmart nationally, their national program too, to try to work out some kind of diversion program as well for first-time offenders. So, in the back of the room, who I promised I would not embarrass, she's looking down real fast, our crime analyst, all right, Kelly McKinley. She's what we call our genius. I think they call her Chloe as a joke from 24, if you've ever saw it. All right, I promise I won't embarrass you no more. Well, what she's doing for the department is we're working on a thing called predictive policing, right? So the goal is to quit looking backwards to find out what's happening in the past and then try to act like we know what we're doing because it happened yesterday. But to take a look at what's happening yesterday, apply it to what we know today, and see if we can be predictive of where we need to be to prevent it in the future. And so a lot of that comes out of things like this. These are what we call heat density maps, or they're the, if you was to put up, remember the old TV shows where they put a pin in the map where crimes would happen? Well, if we put our pins in the map and we showed you that, it would look like a shotgun hit the city, all right? But this helps us by focusing us where we need to be, because it shows where the most dense crimes are happening for whatever that particular topic might be, and allows us to put our officers there and work in those zones and try to reduce it. One of the very important ones here, if you look at the robberies over the last 3 years, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting, and just to point out because I talked about economic development in partnership with us, look at the difference here from what last 3 years to what we're dealing with in the past year up there on Broad and Hamilton, right? It's just, that's on robberies. Burglaries, kind of the same thing here with burglaries. Again, we know we're going to put people up in that area. We're going to work that area. It's going down. And violent crime. Violent crime, which I know is what everybody is really concerned with. Now, that does include robberies, burglaries, but it includes some other things too, assaults and stuff like that. That's changed a lot with the direction, with them being focused in areas where it was happening, reducing that by our drive to hold details in those areas, and the officers knowing where I need to be on my proactive time. So those have gone down. Again, take a look at the changes there with economic development assistance. Traffic. Everybody's always concerned with traffic. I know you should be, right? I used to always say if someone said, please don't arrest me for speeding if you see me, right? That was probably a pretty good person who's probably not robbing things, right? So I'd rather you be speeding than stealing things, I guess, but don't do either. All right. So traffic. As the mayor mentioned a minute ago, crashes are down 12%. We had 1,421 traffic stops. If you even just kind of calculated the amount of time it takes to do a traffic stop, all right, that's not 1,421 tickets, right? These are them stopping people, educating people. We like to say looking beyond the license plate and see if there's other crimes and things happening, and a lot of crimes are solved that way. But it's also educating them on the problems of driving or a crash problem, and it helps. Our citations are up 9%, but if all 1,421 were citations, it'd be up a lot more than that. But it's stopping them and knowing that we're recognizing the driving behaviors and driving patterns that are causing crashes, so they're doing great work there. And then we put the intersections on here just so you know. It probably don't surprise you. You heard some stuff in the news here recently, but 47% of all of our crashes occur in the intersections. And importantly, if you look at these two intersections that are red, and you see us down there a lot, now you know why, right? By being there on what we call directed patrol, by just being there specific times of those shifts that Deputy Chief Kelso has at road patrol doing, that has reduced those crashes significantly. Even though it's still red now, but that is our predictive policing. It tells us where we need to be, right? If you look in the areas, I didn't really explain this much, but red is really bad, yellow is still kind of bad. You know, I think you probably figured out green's getting a little not so bad, blue don't really have an issue with this for right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that in your street, someone went down the street and you saw them speeding and someone's driving, well, you might say like a moron. Now, a couple days later, you got someone else driving like that, right? You call us up, we are going to do what we can do. If you send an email, you call us, you run into us, hey, on my street, this is happening. We will do what we can do to get radar trailers and things out there to try to work it. But if it's really moving us real far away from that red to do it, We're not going to spend a whole lot of time there, other than we'll go there to kind of help you, but we need to reduce the crashes that are happening in the city, and that's where we try to put our people as much as we can. So I hope you understand that, you and anybody else that might be watching later, that we're not trying to ignore the blue areas, but the blue areas in a grand scale isn't having as much problem as we're having right in these areas right here. That's why we try to focus as much as we can there. So, to our programs that I think are just tremendous. Again, getting a lot of support from the community, from the council, from the school systems. We're able to bring 2 new school resource officers. The one's in the back of the room there, Michael Dillon, right? The addition of putting these 2 new, so now a total of 3 school resource officers into our school systems is unbelievably makes things safer, right? If you think about the stuff you're watching on the news and you're hearing stuff, these guys are proactive. Their number one role is safety. The number one role they project is mentorship and community relations and all that, and that's important. But they're always watching for the danger that could be a potential in that school. And then we sit down and they update me, they update the deputy chiefs, their bosses, all the time about what's going on inside those school systems. And it's a lot of stuff. It's a very eclectic group, not just the people in the schools, but our officers themselves. They have varying views and opinions on how things should be done in the school, and I love that, because that makes them have to have a discussion about which one's right, and they got to convince each other, right? It's not a one-way show. And by doing that, they make themselves better, they make the school better. And I think I mentioned someone the other day that the football team refers to them, those are our dudes, right? So that's a good thing. All right. Then we have, fortunately, we were able to have 3 canines and hopefully 1 more the first of the next year, sometime in the middle of next summer maybe. 2 of those are drug canines and one's a bomb canine, and the bomb canine you're seeing right here, that's a partnership with DSCC. It'll help them for their needs for explosives, and it'll help us if we ever have a need for a bomb detection. It's also a very friendly dog, right? Right. Unless he gives it a certain command, but he won't tell any of us what that is. All right, so here you got Beretti, Hugo, and we knew we'd get that. That was for the all effect. All right. I'd also like, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do this, we just had 2 officers. This community has, I guess it's, for me to stand up here and say it, it's just self-serving, but the reality of it is I think everyone in this room already knows that. You have some of the best officers in the nation working in this agency, no doubt about it. And here's a couple proofs. This ain't the only 2, but here's a couple proofs. Officer Dave Nickel will be recognized next week for Franklin County Law Enforcement Officer for a multitude of things. It wasn't because he made a lot of arrests. It wasn't because of any particular thing. The criteria was a very, very long list that included character, that included what he did on duty, off duty. Very, very impressive officer. When you think of a police officer, what should a police officer be like? This is one of them. They're all like that, right? If you get to know them better. So he's getting awarded next week for that, and that's he's not here today, but I'm proud of him for that. MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Now they honor judges, they honor prosecutors, businesses sometimes. You have to do something specific and show them that you're really dedicated to reducing the impaired drivers on the roadway to win this. And Officer Dusty Willis won that this year for our city, so that was great. And he'll be getting awarded here real soon. So he's also not here, but we're very, very proud of both of those officers and all of them as well. All right, so I want to go into every Safer Whitehall meeting before we turn it over and finish up on our side. We decided that what we wanted to do was, when we ask you for a Safer Whitehall, which if you remember, that was, what will you do today to make Whitehall safer? Notice I pointed myself too, but that's all of us. Every day, what are you doing? Well, we need to give you little tools too. So for every one of these meetings, I think we're going to bring in a little bit of piece of something to help you out to accomplish that task. I always say often, every day is an opportunity. So at the end of your day, you have to ask yourself, Did I take advantage of that opportunity? And if you answer the question, what I did today to make Whitehall safer, then the answer to that is obviously yes. And there's a multitude of things that you can do. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is this, and I don't want to turn this into a human trafficking class, so I think we got some handouts back there that is going to cover a lot of these question signs and things, but this is extremely important. It's a problem the country's got, it's a problem Ohio's got, and if you understand the formula of human trafficking, this is a community that would be ripe for that. So we need to know about it, we need to communicate with our youth about it, we need to communicate with each other about it and pay attention. So this is force, fraud, or coercion. I'm not going to go read all this stuff to you. There's a handout for it. But through force, fraud, or coercion, they're making people do things so that someone else can profit from it. We ended that a long time ago, and they still call it modern-day slavery. And people are being put in positions and made to do things that are just unthinkable. You can't fathom what's happening to some of these young girls, right? Not just young girls, but we run into people who can't speak the language, who don't know their rights, and someone else has lied to them or told them that they have to do certain things to either earn their citizenship or to get their passport turned over to them, and they're living in horrible conditions, and they are made to do labor for someone else. Again, we ended that a long time ago, and it's still happening here. So what I gave you, and I'm giving you, not going to read it here, but you should have them. There are handouts back here, maybe on some of your seats. Here's some questions you can ask people, or with the questions you'll learn the signs of what might be happening to recognize someone who's going through sex trafficking or labor trafficking. And please report that to us. And if you're not near any of us, here's a number. And so what we want to do going into 2018 is we want to start to inundate the community area with this phone number, this hotline, with some messaging and following the human trafficking model that the state's got in place. Because at some point, the folks that are caught up in this, especially in the sex trafficking trade, if you're familiar with it, they're not going to tell us when we run into them that they're being trafficked. They sometimes have to hit rock bottom. And then when they really hit rock bottom, then they call somebody. We want to make sure in that process of getting there that they've seen this number time and time again, and then they just know, I'm just going to make that call. That hotline, I know the folks that work there, they're great in DC, and they work directly with the local agencies, and they'll get us right in contact with that person, and then the social services will help out, Salvation Army. So that's my piece on that. Stop in my office any day, and I'll take that to 2 hours. All right, thank you. So next, I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Sharpless if he'll come up and talk to you about our Safer Whitehall initiatives for the year.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Again, my name is Tracy Sharpless. I am the Administrative Deputy Chief. You may ask what that is, and several of you already have. Essentially, the Administrative Bureau is everyone at the police department that doesn't wear one of these. Now, that would be our detectives, our narcotic unit, our dispatchers, our crime analysts, positions like this. And I am going to share some of the things we have going on in the Administrative Bureau. But before I do that, I'd like to remind everyone about our Safer Whitehall initiative. And the Safer Whitehall initiative, if you remember from our first town hall meeting, that is primarily aimed at the city's businesses. There's roughly 750 businesses here in Whitehall, and we hope to put a sticker on the door of every one of them. Essentially, in order to obtain the sticker, you just need to do three things. You need to complete a training program that's been devised by our Detective Bureau. You need to commit to cooperate with law enforcement, and you need to be willing to prosecute the suspects after we apprehend them. If you do those three things, then we are going to give you a certificate of completion. We're going to give you a lovely sticker. It's going to look great on your door, and we hope to have one of these on the door of every business here in Whitehall soon. So now I'd like to just go back to the Administrative Bureau and just highlight some of the things we've done over the last 6 months. I'm not going to highlight, I'm not going to hit every entity, but I would like to talk about a couple of them. I'll start with our Detective Bureau. Our Detective Bureau, they're responsible for investigating all felony level crimes and violent misdemeanors. So If your car got broken into, I know that's a terrible thing, but that's not going to be sent to a detective. Those will be investigated by the patrol officer that responds. So if you think somebody did it, they're going to go ahead and look into that at that level. Our Detective Bureau so far, they're on pace to handle 1,500 felony level cases for 2017. Guess I better catch up here. There we go. To the left there, that's a picture of our Detective Bureau. So you can do the math, you can count how many detectives we have, and when we have 1,500 felony cases, you can see that these guys are pretty busy. A couple things, in addition to their caseload, they've also started a couple new initiatives. Chief Crispin mentioned the human trafficking. We've conducted our first human trafficking sting back in August, and with the help and assistance of Columbus Police Department, OSP, Salvation Army, and our crime analyst, we conducted a one-night sting. I believe we had 9 arrests. That wasn't our goal. We weren't out there to make arrests. As he mentioned, ultimately what we're looking to do is try to find a young lady or somebody who's the victim of human trafficking. And in Ohio, to become a victim of human trafficking, you first have to be a prostitute. So we were hoping to come across someone who maybe fit that description. I do know that we made 9 arrests. I don't know that any of them were victims of human trafficking per se, but I do know that each and every one will go through Judge Herbert's courtroom down in Franklin County, and he has a program called Catch, and he will speak to every one of those young women and determine if they want to get out of that lifestyle, and he'll give them an opportunity to do so if they really want to commit to it. Another thing our Detective Bureau is doing is we have 2 detectives assigned to the Heroin Overdose Prevention and Education Task Force. That's the Franklin County, you've probably heard it, it's the HOPE Task Force. And essentially with all the heroin overdoses hitting us hard in this area, what happens is after we've responded to the scene and we know that they're home, we will send a detective out with some medical professionals from Franklin County, and they'll visit those people that have overdosed and try to get them into a program and determine whether or not they really want to get out or not. And if they do, we'll provide them the assistance and get them in the right direction. Now with that, I will move on to the narcotics unit. If you follow us on Facebook or social media, you've probably seen over the last couple years all the great stuff that our narcotic unit has done. Earlier this year, the sergeant that was in charge of that unit, Sergeant Dennis Allen, he retired. He did an absolutely fabulous job. But as they say in just about all aspects of life, next man up. And so currently, Sergeant John Earl is in charge of that unit, and he hit the ground running. He was previously a part of that unit as a detective, and really, they haven't missed a beat. I'll say that so far to date in 2017, we have received 182 drug tips. Approximately half of those come from the public. So I'd just like to take just a second to kind of differentiate between they're all good drug tips. Don't get me wrong, if you tell me that you think they're selling drugs at 123 East Main Street, then that's fine, that's a good drug tip. But what would make it a better drug tip would be, I think they're selling drugs at 123 East Main Street between 8 and 11, because I see a lot of traffic there. I think it's the guy that drives the blue Buick who lives at that house, and additional information is always better. So as you can tell by the number of cases that our narcotic unit receives, we kind of have to decide, which ones are we going to look at now and which ones are we going to look at later. All right, the ones that have more information are going to move to the top, because those we obviously have the best chance of success in getting somewhere with those. So don't stop giving us tips, but the more information, the better. I would also point out that we've made over 400 drug arrests year to date. That's not just the narcotic unit, that's the department as a whole, but certainly the narcotic unit is a part of that. I've mentioned there's a number of different ways that you can provide a drug tip to us. We're always happy to hear from you. We have an online reporting system called CopLogic. It's available through the city's link. You can submit it that way. These are all anonymous. We don't have to know your name, and you can lie to us. We wouldn't know the difference anyways. So you can submit it through CopLogic. You can give us a call. We have a tip line that you can just leave a message. You can call an officer discreetly and say, hey, I'd just like to speak to you a minute. Any number of ways we'll accept all the information that you want to provide. The last part that I'd like to mention is our communication center. I don't know if everyone knows this, but the City of Whitehall does maintain a fully operational 911 call center. Not all the cities in Franklin County has that. It's certainly, we've had one in the 25 years since I've been here. And I want you to know that they do a heck of a job. In general, our dispatchers receive 700 911 calls a month. So that's essentially about 25 a day. And they receive 175 non-emergency calls for service. So if you look at that, we have 200 calls a day coming in. 25 of those are, oh my gosh, the world is ending calls. You know, somebody's not breathing, or, you know, somebody's got a serious problem. So what I'm asking for you is when you call in, occasionally I receive a complaint since I'm their ultimate supervisor, you know, that maybe they were a little rude or whatever. I can understand that. We demand professionalism from our dispatchers at all times, but please take into consideration that you may be calling and that dispatcher may have just got off the phone after having taken one of those 25, oh my gosh, the world's ending calls, and that will affect anyone. So just please take that into consideration. With that, I think that's all I have to share with you. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast. I have a tendency to do that. You know, I get more done during the day that way. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Sergeant Dan Wardlow.
Everybody knows the old saying, never work with kids or pets, right? You all just became part of my class because I've never had even a crowd like this with everybody clapping up. Here, claps. So we're going to see if this will work. And it should. Full again. He's very social. He's also very good. He wants to see everybody, and all the clapping and everything was really a chore for him. Lots. Off. Right. Now, this should work. If it doesn't work, he isn't going to attack anybody in the audience. This is Euclid. He, thanks to the chief, the mayor, city council, they've made me the happiest patrolman on the department. I wanted to do this forever. I'm finally getting the opportunity. He is going to be Whitehall's new K9. That's a bomb dog. He's not through school yet. We've only been in school for 3 weeks. It's a 6-week course. So we're this far. We got 2 other dogs being trained right now that are also in school. They're going to be narcotics dogs. You'll get dogs are like people. You're going to get different levels of engagement with each dog. I don't know if our narcotics dogs I'll be able to do this with or not, or I won't be able to do it, or if they will be able to or not. So we're all just going to have to learn what we've got. But the purpose behind these dogs are they've got a lot of jobs. He's a bomb dog. They're narcotics dogs. That's only a fraction of what they do. They're all patrol dogs. So that means they have handler protection. He'll take care of me. They have article searches. I could go out in the yard, throw some things around the yard, or follow a path that a suspect has taken and have him search it. He'll pick up guns. He'll pick up wallets. He'll pick up cell phones. He'll bring them all back to me. He's actually exceptional at that. They also will do tracking. Each dog has different degrees of how good they are at tracking, especially in a city environment where all the asphalt and the petroleum and stuff, they've got limitations in a city, but it's a skill that they will be certified in and that we will attempt to use them in. And then, of course, what everybody thinks of when they think of K9, they've got apprehension abilities. And as gentle as this dog is, he absolutely has it. He is very good at it, and he has that resource available to him. Now, understand why we're getting the dogs. Just to go into what the chief has said, thanks to the mayor, thanks to city council, and thanks for the chief, they have this vision. And part of the vision is to get the crime out of Whitehall. And we can't stop the drug flow. We're not going to. Nobody in the country has been able to. But what we can try to do is make them not want to come to Whitehall. Okay? So if we've got 2, and then hopefully in the long run, 3 narcotics dogs that are doing nothing but stopping cars and finding drugs, maybe they go around Whitehall. Maybe they don't come in our city, which is what we all want. Okay? We're not going to stop it, but we can make it go someplace else. And with the dedication of everybody I mentioned, they also thought about the businesses in Whitehall. What resources, if we're going to give the community this to try to drive off the drugs, what can we do for the businesses to help them out? And in our modern era, in our society that we have now, we have threats. So in tandem with DSCC and then looking forward to VA Hospital and looking at Alliance data, looking at our government buildings, and looking at our schools, we can offer them a bomb dog that's available to them. That's where I get to come in. So that's what we're attempting to learn right now. You can see he's got this down pretty good. You notice I'm standing near the edge though, so I can get hold of him if he doesn't do it. But I will take any questions. I don't actually we haven't done it yet. I've still got three more weeks to go. So I can't give you examples. I can't give you what we've done. We haven't done it yet. But I know what the goal is, and I know what the process is. And is there any questions that I can answer anybody about where we're trying to end up or how we're getting there?
How long are the dogs projected to be with the program? Is this a permanent commitment?
Well, I believe it's a permanent commitment from the city. I know that usually the working span of a dog like this is 7 to 9 years. Now, in Euclid's case, he's already 4. We're getting him a little later. He has some previous work done with him. That's why actually he is able to do this. 3 weeks into a class, none of the other dogs I'm in school with right now could do this. But there was some previous work put into him. So 7 to 9 years, hopefully each dog, and hopefully that's just a start. Hopefully, I won't be here in 7 years, but in case you don't know me, my name's Dan Wardlow. I've been a sergeant here for pretty much forever. I've been a sergeant for 17 years. I've been on the police department for 26. I never dreamed I would get this opportunity at the end of my career. So that's the idea as I understand it right now. Sir.
What language do you give your dog?
All of his pre-trained and all of his police actions are trained in Dutch. Now, he's being taught now tracking and explosive detection, and instead of me having to learn more Dutch, which I don't speak Dutch, they are being taught in English. So now I have to flip-flop a switch in my head as I'm running through his commands with him. The worst part of these last 3 weeks is teaching me what he already knows. So now I'm catching up to him. Now he needs to catch up with what we're teaching him now. Ma'am.
Are you going to have the narcotics dogs do sweeps through the high school and middle school?
I'm sure that's the intent because right now we use Franklin County for that periodically. We don't do it a lot. That's the school administration gets to say on that. But I know we currently use Franklin County when we do it. And if we have 2, and in the long run 3 working narcotics dogs, I don't understand why we would do that anymore. My plan is with Euclid, now granted I'm not a narcotics dog, but my plan is to walk him through the schools, if not a school every day, which is actually my goal, to be around the schools every day, especially when they're letting out, so that they all see him, they always there. Every year we always get a couple of bomb scares. I will actually run him through the schools then, but he's one dog, a lot of schools. I have an amount of resources available to me, but not overwhelming. The one thing I will say about this class is I'm making a lot of connections with other bomb dogs in areas that I didn't even know was available or was out there. So if something major would happen, life. If something major was out there, I would have more resources that I could contact. I don't know what he's looking at.
It was a fly.
Oh, he hates flies.
That's 2 of us.
Coming off the professional side of this,
Either a fly or those 2.
no, he chases flies around in my house and he eats them. So it's probably a fly. If somebody, man. Well, okay, that's kind of a trick question. They tell me he's a Belgian Malinois, and he is from Belgium, but he's so big. Most Belgian Malinois are between 50 and 60 pounds, and all the dogs over there are bred. All the dogs over there are bred by by good dogs that are already working. So if they've got a really good working German Shepherd and a real good working Belgian Malinois, they'll breed them together, along with the Dutch Shepherds. So what you're getting from Europe that's coming over here that are good working dogs are kind of a mingled mess, and they have to put something on the passport to get them over. Now, he's got all the traditional markings of a Belgian Malinois. He looks exactly like a Belgian Malinois, only he's a giant. So he may be all Belgian Malinois, but with his size, I kind of want to bet there's something else in there. Yeah, he's getting a little antsy on me. He's never had to sit this long. Just to show you where we're at. For certification, he has to sit away from me for 2 minutes and then come when called. Okay? He's been here much longer than that. So he is, and you all won't be there clapping and making noise when I'm doing it. It'll be me and him in the middle of a field. So this dog already is set to do that. Okay, I'm going to come over here and take a seat. Hopefully he's going to come with me. You go here. You go here. This is me.
Well, this is your opportunity if you have any questions for us. Right here.
My name's Jackson. I live over on Ross Road. Been Whitehall resident for 41 years. And we've recently said that there's an inner city in Whitehall. Where would you put it? And if we got an inner city like Columbus, is there a gang problem?
You say there's an inner city in Whitehall?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. I mean, I've been all over Whitehall. I can't find it. The inner city of Columbus, I won't even drive through it because of the gang situation.
Well, if you find it, let us know.
So, but is there a gang problem?
You're in the middle. We are surrounded by Columbus, so we'd be foolish to say we're not a gang issue we have to deal with. Most of that stuff, I think last time we remember telling you, 67% of all of our theft crimes and crimes are coming from outside of Whitehall. That's a large part of it. But we have some very, very knowledgeable officers who are skilled in dealing with gangs, and we work closely with Columbus and gang unit. And so, but yes, we do have that issue, and we're addressing it. Anybody else? Question for the dog?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. May Ellen Fowler, and I've lived here since December 20th, 1949. Can anything be done about speeding on residential streets? Case in point, one night last week, it was late afternoon, mid to late afternoon, from Main Street. This car was rocketing. I mean, he must have come around the corner and floored it. And he made so much noise, he scared both of my cats. He backfired twice in the middle of the block. And I'm only 6 houses north of Main Street. He's going that fast already. And it's an everyday occurrence at many hours of the day. It's not any one time.
Well, the answer to your question is absolutely something can be done. We go from the 1,400 and some traffic stops to 2,400 and some. That's, you know, they just panic back there. Those officers just panic. But no, in all seriousness, it really isn't a joke. And I mentioned it earlier to you when I said that, you know, when in your areas where these things are happening, these are serious problems for you. They're serious problems for your family.
And with us not having sidewalks for kids to play on, true, there are not many children on my block, but in the entire Glencoe area, there's tons of kids around here. And I'm sure that it's not just isolated to Westfall just because it goes from Livingston all the way up almost to Broad Street.
So what we have, and then you can, again, you can reach out to us for that particular road. We're hoping to get another one actually, but a radar sign that we put out there. And it's interesting because you'll see people, when there's not an officer around, they see that sign starts to flash their speed, they'll start to slow down a little bit. That'll also help us too with some statistics on those particular roads, because then when someone calls and says they got a problem out here, we haven't been out there. We saw the 2 red areas where we're trying to get most of our traffic enforced the time. So that'll give us some statistics, and we'll be able to look at that and say there's a problem. Because what you looked at before, and the only thing we can truly measure right now is crashes. Right? So crash is a real data. When someone says someone's going to have a crash, crashes are real data. They
There's a
actually
lot
have
of them
them.
at Wright Avenue.
So get with us and we'll get you a radar vehicle out there or equipment out there, and we'll get the sign out, and we'll work it. Just let us know.
Appreciate that, thank you.
It's not a problem. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Kim Williams, and I live here in Whitehall. I'm a senior citizen who is suddenly raising a grandchild, which means another teenager. So suddenly the school has become very important to me. You guys, there were officers in the school one day this week. The students knew you were going to be there. My granddaughter texted me. They were only here for the open of school. They've all left. I'm leaving. She truly did not feel safe, having been told there was a situation, but it was taken care of because the officers were going to be there. And then they were all gone. I mean, she told the front office, I'm cutting school the rest of the day. The digital academy teacher can find me. I will be at the Whitehall Public Library on my computer, which is indeed where she was, and did more hours of schoolwork than she would have at school. I think that when you talk with the school administration, the students need to know what to expect. Are you there for them to come into a school to feel like you're keeping an eye on everybody, or are you there for the day?
That's a great question. I'm really glad you asked it, and you guys can try into it after this, but we have a school resource officer back there. They work there full time, so they're.
She loves the resource officer.
They all love them. We
Yes.
sort of do too.
Sometimes he drives her home. If she is not feeling safe, he will drive her
But I
home.
think I remember the incident you were talking about, and without really getting into too much details of that particular incident, more importantly, how we respond to them, we have to kind of do a couple of things. We have to it's kind of like we did the fireworks this past year. There's a certain point at which there's too many police officers around, people start getting really nervous. What's going on, right? And we have to find where that peak is. Where can we have enough where people feel safe, and then where can we not have too many where they start to think it's bad. So when we get to the point where we feel like we still need more officers in those areas, which we did that day, well, we get the exact number that we feel you'll feel comfortable with, but we're not comfortable yet. So we have, as the deputy chief mentioned, a lot of officers who don't wear uniforms. And so we put them around those areas so nobody knows that really I shouldn't say nobody, we know, that if there's an incident that's going to kick up, we have people available that can deal with it. But on that incident, they worked on that for days on making sure that whatever the threats were, which ended up being not a threat, which is good.
Yes.
But it had been. I assure you there was officers around where you didn't know there was officers around. So if you want to tell your daughter that, tell her we're not everywhere. I'm not even trying to pretend to tell you that we're everywhere. It's not possible. We don't have enough people. But when situations happen at the school, we make it a point to make sure that we have officers both visible and sometimes not visible. They're looking
And
for
because they
us.
weren't visible, she was like, I'm out of here.
Well, tell her if you could to talk before she jumps to that. Reach out to her school resource officer and get some and say, can I speak to the school resource officer? And maybe that school resource officer and his way can kind of get them to.
I have
understand.
actually had that conversation because she's a teenager. It's very much all or nothing. You know, it's
You're
all
the only
good.
one that has one like that.
I've raised 5 before this one.
You guys have anything to add to that?
I'll just say this, when we have an incident like that, everyone's aware, the entire department's aware. So we do have a lot of administrative people in plain clothes, like you mentioned, our protective bureau. They're definitely a part of all those plans. They are definitely in the area. And I don't know how I can convince, your daughter that they're there, other than, again, talking to the administration, and if she needs to talk to the officer there so that he can ensure make her feel better, then that's what needs to take place. But like you said, I assure you, anytime we have something like that, we have the area well surrounded.
And I do appreciate that. I mean, I truly do. I talked her into going to school because the officers are going to be there, which she was very, she has been bullied in Whitehall since 4th grade, and she has been jumped once outside Dairy Queen on the walking home. And that was not even by a Whitehall student. It was by a home school, some school, whatever school. It was not a public student. So she's had enough experiences that she is an apprehensive person to start with. She likes to see the officers. I mean, when Officer Salyers brought her home after she was jumped. He remembered her from when she was in elementary school. They started in kindergarten together, those two. And when he brought her home to me, just covered in blood, he was like, if that were my granddaughter, I said, I'm on the way down to Children's already. He offered to get a squad if I needed one, but I was like, no, we'll just get her there. But it makes for a very apprehensive student.
Let me give you one more layer also that I direct, because I'm a patrol sergeant. Once the school is secured, all those officers come in, they secure the school. If we keep them there, we disrupt the school even more. So what we do is we move out, and officers like Officer Dillon in the back, who's an SRO, they monitor the cameras. But day shift patrol, along with the detectives and everybody else that's with, they're not gone. They're just outside. They're in an outer perimeter where they can respond
Thank you.
in their cruisers and
Yes.
where we can get there. First of all, there's nowhere in Whitehall that I can't get to in about 2 minutes if I can.
Yes.
And then especially if if that place is already on my radar and I've already put out to my officers, I want you in this area, you're going to have officers back in the schools within 30 seconds.
Any other?
I'm Nancy Stipple. I have a question about transparency. I would like to see, and I'm sure other people would, know what's going on. A couple of weeks ago, we had a warrant served or something at 7:30 in the morning. Open up, please, we have a warrant and all that. And nobody could tell where it came from, and there's no way of knowing. We as residents kind of know where our problem areas are. It'd be really nice if we could know who's been arrested, so that we would know that that was taken care of. I did, I waved to one of the officers. Everybody on your staff is wonderful. And he stopped to talk, and I asked him how we could find out. And he said, well, we just took care of a problem. Well, we know that, but we kind of feel safer if we knew where that problem was and had been taken care of. Do they have any way that we can find out who's been arrested, what's going on?
Well, since I'm going to put him on the spot, he's in the back, I'm not going to make him say anything, but Michael Dillon back here, Officer Dillon, when him and I first talked about a year ago, he said something that I thought was kind of interesting, kind of an epiphany for me, which is, we do a lot of things here, but we keep it a secret. Remember that, Michael? Come on, give a T-shirt that says that one. So, and it's a really, really valid point, and your question is very valid, and I appreciate you asking it. One of the things we try to do is, on the ones that we arrest, first off, I want you to know, plus I want to brag about what they're doing, right? So sorry, Kelly, put Kelly back on the spot again, but she's very good about the ones that we're able to put out, putting them on Facebook and letting people know what these folks did. Because they're risking their lives and go kicking the doors in and stuff, and they go get folks, and who knows what's in these. So that's the reason we're using the SWAT and stuff. And so if it's a success, and we can tell you what we did, we're going to put this on Facebook. That's the quickest way to get the information out. We can put a news release. It doesn't always make the news. But I will tell you, social media is an unbelievably powerful thing, and Twitter. And we put stuff out there that we can put out as often as we can. I'm not saying we don't miss things here and there. But there are times when those cases are leading to second and third level kind of cases and I got a sense, knowing these officers, that someone said we took care of a problem is because that's headed somewhere else, and they just didn't want to say names or any particulars. But we will do a better job of that, I promise, and we'll keep trying to get the information out. But if you'll monitor Facebook, I know today, so I don't like Facebook and Twitter myself much either, but it's where we are today. So if you can get on that and watch that as much as possible, that's where we're trying to put most of the stuff that we can. I think we even took it an extra step, right, when we're starting to put some warrants out there. I don't know if you can talk about that.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so, by the way, if they live there, you call us. That's another one we'll come and get.
Be the person. Well,
And sometimes I also want to add too, I want to add too, they usually tell us, but sometimes even Columbus or Franklin County have big cases that one reason or another they fail to tell us. Nobody's perfect. Sometimes we're doing something in Franklin, Columbus that we failed to remind them. We try not to. We try not to do that. We try to work real well with each other. People just get busy and they forget to tell the other agencies what they're doing. And there have been many times since I've been here that people call and said, what happened down there? And they kick doors in, there's explosions and other stuff, what's going on? And I go ask our folks, and then we have to start calling, because it certainly wasn't our SWAT team, and we come find out it was another agency. But that is not the norm. That's not how all those agencies operate. They tend to have protocols in place, and they typically apologize, oh, we forgot, we're sorry. But when they do it, we're not really at liberty to release their information. So it's a great question.
I think some of that information, it's not secret, it's all kind of public record for the most part, so if you live here and there's some commotion going on behind your house, and again, you hear the flashbangs and yelling and stuff like that, and you're curious, that's fine. I mean, if you call into the station, I'm sure the dispatcher will give you some preliminary information, just saying that there are SWAT teams there and we've executed a search warrant or something like that. They're not going to go into details, but enough to probably put your mind at ease.
Well, just to let us know where it is, because you can't tell, it could be anywhere on the next street. Up and
Yeah,
down.
I don't think they would try to keep that from you or anything. So, I mean, if you're curious, if you call in, they'll share some basic information with you.
Thank you.
I saw another hand back there, so.
What actions have been taken for the recent scattering?
What actions have been taken? We arrested the suspect. I'm sorry, stepping into this detective world here, but we arrested the suspect that day with some assistance from the community. If you paid attention to news, you saw that. That's again, I think we talked a little bit ago about safer Whitehall. What can you do to keep Whitehall safer? I don't think there's any doubt that day what those three people did. They had an opportunity, they seized it, and someone's alive today because of that. But it's in the normal criminal justice system now because he's been arrested. And I think I saw somewhere in the news this morning that she came home today, or maybe come home today or something, so that's a good thing. But she's got a long road ahead of her. I mean, that's once they go to the hospital and stuff, that's beyond our world. We're not, for HIPAA and all these other things, they don't tell us what's going on. But so we pay attention to news just like you do, trying to figure out, because we care, we want to make sure she's okay. But I think she's going to be fine physically, life-threatening wise, but I think she's got a long road ahead of her.
Surprisingly, I got reports of how well she was doing so soon after that attack. Apparently the doctors did just a fabulous job with her. The Texans were reporting how great she looked and great spirits and everything. So really, I think she's going to do just fine in the long run.
Say a prayer for him.
What would you like for us to do to help you?
Well, that's a loaded question. Well, you're doing it now. You're doing it now by being here and feeding us some information about what you need us to be doing, what else we could do to serve. But you're also listening when we say, this is what we need from you. And I just mentioned some human trafficking stuff and things like that. Communicating with the youth and communicating with your neighbors. It's a social media world. It's funny because people know everybody across here to Argentina, but they don't know their next door neighbor. So walk next door, knock, and introduce yourself. And don't be a busybody. But if they go out of town, let them know that you'll watch their place and you'll let us know. They left and they forgot to put their garage door down. You don't want to run over there if you don't know them that well. Call us. We'll get it taken care of. So we do our officers do that all the time. I think Miranda even tells a story once where they put her garage door or something down for them. So there's a lot of things. The question really is, what more can we do to help you? That's a great question. So yes, sir.
First, thanks, Chief, and your staff, and the mayor and the administration. This is really awesome that you're wanting to hear from the community. My question is to you, Chief. You talked earlier about the predictive policing, where we're using data and analytics to figure out where we think our next issue might be. My question is, are we looking at reacting, or are we looking at being proactive? In other words, when we talk about putting resources into that community, are we talking about putting policemen in there particularly, or are we talking about, since we know that it's drugs mainly that are leading the thefts up, are we talking about putting resources in there? Maybe we can circumvent some of this happening and dealing with the drug issue, which I think is driving some of the crime issue.
Yes, sir. That's a tremendous question, and the predictive policing part of it, we understand, and of course we got Chloe back here. We understand the whole concept of it. Sorry. we understand the concept of it, and we just recently got some good technology from last year's budget to be able to finally put this in place, some LexisNexis and some things we didn't have before. So some of that stuff you just saw, some people, it was the first time they ever saw it. And we now can then, from our strategic plan, from our directed patrols, from road patrol, from the Detective Bureau of Narcotics, we now can look and say, where do we need to be tomorrow? Obviously the red and the greens and the yellows, those are where we want to be. And we put folks there. We've got a significant amount of grants that are available to us out there. Getting them and then managing them is a bit of a beast, right? So, appreciate that he does that. But we're able to use some of that grant money then to put people out above and beyond their 8-hour shift on the road. And we do a lot of different things in those red areas, whether it's robberies and thefts. And I mentioned a couple earlier, but what you just described is exactly what predictive policing is. You're trying to predict where it's going to happen and get there before it does. Our goal isn't to arrest everybody in the neighborhood. Our goal is to change behavior and get them to just comply voluntarily. That's the best case scenario. If we don't arrest and handcuff anybody today or tomorrow or all week, but there's no crime all week, that's great. I'll go back to passing football.
Well, I mean, if I can just continue on.
Since you mentioned in passing football, I guess I'm thinking maybe passing the football first. You know what I mean? As opposed to waiting until the crime is down, so we don't have much to do. I guess I'm thinking more getting into those neighborhoods early and getting out and passing the football first. You know what I mean? Just so that we can get to understand what some of the issues are, and maybe, because I tell you, we've been knocking on doors, and you're right, the drug issue is a real issue, and it's all around in all these different neighborhoods. And I think it'd be to find a way to attack that before people actually start ingesting the drugs and overdosing and doing all that and stealing, you know. And I know a lot of it is the community. We have to join in and see what we can do to help that issue, you know.
I thought I saw him walk in, but I don't think there he is. Our city attorney, Mr. Evans. So I think we found a candidate there for that committee we were talking about. So we've been talking about that a lot, and I think you nailed it a second ago. You said it takes a lot from the community, right? So you heard a lot of the calls and we're running these things, and if you would get to know some of the officers and just kind of saw what they did on their own time, right, with the community, you'd really be impressed with what they're doing on their own, from developing the police athletic leagues, and this is stuff they do on their own, right? It's not they're not getting paid for it. So those things are happening, but really the police department and the numbers that we have, we're going to do those things, but we really need your help there. That's that Safer Whitehall thing. What are you going to do to help us with that? We'll sit down and talk to any of the kids that want to talk to us. And I think when you say passing football, we're getting back to preventing those with the youth. And that is certainly the number one goal of ours, because somebody somewhere is going to figure out hopefully what this system is and what we have to do to get that, stop the bleeding there. We do not want to put all of our kids in jail. That is absolutely not what we want to do. And we're working here on a diversion program coming up into the city. We're still working on that with the mayor's office and everybody. And I think that once we get that worked out with the juvenile system, we're going to have a tremendous diversion program in the city that's going to help us with that. And it'll be a routine, full-time, out there with the kids doing those different things that you're talking about. But in the meantime, we need all of your help to help us with that one. Yes, sir.
I may be the only one who doesn't know this, but can you just give a quick overview, like number of officers you have, maybe a couple of major departments and how many are in each of those, and break it down a bit?
Yeah, we have 48 full-time officers, 47 at the moment, one just retired. We have a detective bureau that is ran by a sergeant, and we have a narcotics division that's also ran by a sergeant. Road patrol, which we try to keep minimum 4 or 5 people out. And administration, we have a civilian staff, the clerk, I call them the professional staff, that do a lot of work for us. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So those are our clerk's office. Mentioned the radio operators. We have a property room, 2 full-time or part-time property room guys, and we have our genius in the back of the room.
And we have an auxiliary unit as well. Up to 35, we're authorized strength up to 35. We're currently at 12, and we're in the process of recruiting someone. Although we're in the process.
My name is Scott Linkio. Lived in Whitehall about 23 years. I'm a member of this church, and I can safely say that this church supports local law enforcement and law enforcement nationwide, so we're behind you folks. And then 2 questions. Do you carry Narcan in your cruisers? And what about body cameras?
That's 2 very good questions, right? And one would think both of those can be kind of one of the controversial things, but they're not to us. So the Narcan, yes, all of our officers are carrying them. I think I heard the other day we probably have done about 100, Mayor. You got the number was?
103.
103 uses of it with us, between us and the fire department. Officers, the fire department does the vast majority of those. But our officers have done it too. I think it revived 12, if I remember correctly, and the officers have. But they carry it, and they've been trained in it. And I tell you what, as they say, first time you use that on someone who isn't breathing, and when you use it, it's kind of it's a bit of a miracle if they come out of it. Our job is to do whatever we can do to save lives, and that's just one extra tool. Do we have body cams? We do not have body cameras right now. We have 3 right now looking at testing to see if it would work for us. We're not opposed to body cameras for any other reason than, of course, we need to work out some private issues with the citizens. But as far as we're concerned, cameras don't do anything but prove that we did the right thing 99% of the time. 1% of the time, sometimes we need to correct ourselves, and that's okay. And we use it a lot for training. Our supervisors quarterly have to do random video checks, and so they randomly pull a video off of officers, because we have in-car cameras still, right? We've had for a while. And they watch them, and they're looking for arrest, search and seizure issues, legal issues, the officer safety issues, training issues, and they sit down with them and go over those videos. And so even though they're out there working, any officer, the supervisor's not with them, they're not really sure whether that's going to be the video that they review or not. And so that also is a kind of accountability thing. So that's a great issue. But as far as body cams are concerned, our biggest #1 issue, only concern that we have whatsoever is the amount of freedom of information requests from the media. And we spent 4 hours, a little over 4 hours this morning, just releasing car cameras videos from the media this morning. So that's a deputy chief doing that. So because of that, it takes, those are some of the issues that we have with it. It's not the camera itself. Put 2 of them on us, we're fine. We do the right thing. Our officers do the right thing. We're not worried about that. So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
I was on Collingwood. I was here since 1967 as Zemela. Where's the money coming from for the Narcan? I heard it's expensive, right? Is there a fund set up for it, or a grant or something? So where are we getting the money? Where's it coming from?
Well, we get ours currently from the fire department. Now we just recently got our own from the Department of Health. Right now the Department of Health is giving to us. But there's a grant, and I'll let the mayor, she wants to talk about the new grant we just got. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and of course, we're involved in making sure we get it one way or the other, if we have to make a budget. But Mayor, I don't know.
Yes, the city just received news that we will receive $400,000 from the federal grant. We were the only jurisdiction in Ohio to receive this. Basically, half will go towards counselors or people who will help us administrate the grant. We will have a mayor's drug court in mayor's court, and we will also get Narcan through this grant, so we don't have to pay for it ourselves. Usually, the fire department will pay for it out of their medical expense account. And no, it's not cheap. It is expensive, but we know that it does work. It gives people a second chance. And we're not here to judge people for something that is a disease. And maybe they haven't made bad choices, but we all have at one time or another. That's the way I look at it. And if we're able to save a life so that they can live more fully, we're willing to help. However, Whitehall currently We have about 36 deaths per 100,000 due to overdoses. The county average is, I think, 22.4. Columbus average is 29.2. So we are higher. And there are many factors regarding why it's higher in Whitehall. If you want to talk to me later, I can talk to you what I think those are. But however, we decided that we would take a step out, try to do something different, proactive, something that no one's ever done before in a little mayor's court, and we're going to try to turn it around. And the federal government thinks we may have a chance as well. So we're going to be working on that. It's going to take us about 6 to 7 months to get the action plan in process. And hopefully this coming summer, we'll be working in mayor's court on that. So thank you.
That said, I want to be remiss if I didn't mention these folks here because they're unbelievable for the police department. Are any of our alumni here, Citizens Academy alumni? Can you stand? Yes. Now that I see that you're standing, you can sit down. But someone asked a minute ago, what else can we do? Janice has taken applications for the next Citizens Academy class, right?
Yes, I have 10 of them here. We need everyone to sign up.
So thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Sharon, I live on Dempson, I wave at all you guys. When you drive by.
And we wave back, right? Absolutely, all right.
Brown House. It has slowed down speeding. My question, well not question, you have Broad and Hamilton, a crash site. Now, you have 3 corners that are very beautiful, at least the Shell station. The check place. I'm going to take my clippers up there and get in that mess. You cannot see the cars going east. And that might be reason some of your crashes. I wouldn't know, but they really need to beautify that center. There might be poison ivy in there, and I can't read it. Plus, you could hide somebody in there and they could jump out.
Yeah, we gotta like you taking your clippers too. We'll take a look
I'm
at
not
that.
very good.
We'll look at that for sure. We put officers down there for a couple hours on directed patrol, so we'll mention that soon when we're down there working with traffic enforcement in that area. Thank
If
you.
I'm not mistaken, that's going to be part of the Grand Horton Crossing renovation, so that won't be here all that long. The sooner the better. And there's going to be some changes there on that as far as traffic and how it's closed there on that corner. So I think it's a short-term problem, but like I said, we'll look at it.
Can you do something about the head-on parking in Glencoe? I've gotten hit on those 2 times, once at Rickenbacker and Erickson, and a couple times down here when I come to church on Sunday morning or Wednesday night. They head in park, and there's the house up on Erickson, I counted 7 cars head-on parking, and you have to almost get out into the middle of the intersection before you can see anything, and if they're driving faster than 20 or 25 miles an hour, you're probably going to get hit. I just creep out.
Yeah, we could definitely take a look at that. Just, you and I were talking about something earlier, so let's talk about that afterwards so I can get a little more info. Okay? Anybody else? If not, great turnout. We're very humbled that you're still coming out. Hopefully we'll see you again in 3 months and see if you can hold us accountable for what we're